Okay, we're recording. All right, let's bring this meeting to order. The June 16th, 2020 Newburyport Conservation Commission meeting taking place on the Zoom online platform. Have any comments, corrections, whatever?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, Paul Ely,
Yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
Jane Sender.
Well,
You can vote no.
yeah,
Okay.
Jane can't vote on this, right?
No, I
Yeah.
shouldn't vote. I wasn't a
Oh, that's
member.
right.
Oh, you weren't even on the commission. All right, never mind. And I vote yes. That's right. So next item is the June 2nd, 2020 meeting minutes. Any comments, changes?
Yep.
Okay. Paul Healy, oh, can I get a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Paul Healy,
Yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
David Vine.
No, I didn't attend.
Oh, you weren't there? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Jane Sender,
Yes.
and I vote yes. All right, next item are the, do we have any Plum Island updates?
We do not have any Plum Island updates right now, no. Things are sort of static out there, which is probably a good thing for the moment.
Okay.
Didn't you mention at the site visit that there was some meeting coming up with DCR or something along those lines?
Actually, yeah, sort of a minor development is that the Moby mats have not yet been rolled out on the two main pathways, one that goes from the parking lot out to the Riverside Beach and the other that goes from 69th Street out to the ocean with a little offshoot down to the river. Those two pathways need their Moby mats. DCR had postponed bringing them out probably because of COVID and lack of staffing there. Right now they're scheduling that. So they're working internally to get staff out there to put out the Moby mats. So that will be great because I know the neighbors have been really itching for it. And we also have a site visit on Wednesday to discuss potentially closing off access between 77th and 71st Streets where we've had the most severe erosion, and allowing an unofficial pathway a little bit further down around 79th Street where people have been wanting to sort of get through there anyway. So we're going to take a look at all that on Wednesday. That's the only update I've got right now.
Julie, can you bring Ron DeCola into the, as a participant?
Yeah, I wanted to mention that I saw Ron on the attendees list. I sort of unmuted him, but Andy, can you help us out with how does Ron move from being an attendee to a panelist?
Yeah, I'll take care of that. If you right click on, or you click on the name that he,
Yep.
where he shows
More.
up, you promote to panelist.
Okay, let's see. Did you just do it?
I just did, yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Julia, is the parking lot
there's
on
Dan,
Plum
too.
Island open?
The parking lot on Plum Island open? Actually, that's a really good question.
It is.
It is?
According
It
to
is.
the Harbor Commission, it's opened and
Okay,
not restricted in
Okay.
terms of the number of spaces.
okay. Good to know.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Ron.
Ron,
Sorry,
Hi,
I
Dan.
came in on the wrong line, apparently.
Hello, hello.
right, that's
Hey,
good.
Do you want me on video? I'm not. I just came in from working in the yard.
Yeah, I'd rather see you.
Okay, I'll share.
It's all right. It's Zoom appropriate like everybody else.
I'm prepared
Hey,
here.
Dan. Good
There you
luck.
go. Paul, is there something in front of your camera?
No, but I noticed it got kind of gray.
Oh, you're getting sun on there. There you go.
Oh,
You
okay.
look a lot better now.
Oh,
All right. So since we have no certificates of compliance, et cetera, Need a motion to open the public hearings?
So moved.
Second.
Second,
All right, Paul Healy,
yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
Jane Sender,
yes,
Ron DeCola,
Yes.
and I vote yes. All right, first item is Jordy Vining, Parker Street, notice of intent 051-1035.
Andy, I don't see Jordy on the list of attendees.
Yeah, I don't either. I was expecting him to be here. I don't know if you want to postpone that a minute or two to see if he, shuffle behind something else, or
Right,
not sure why he's not there.
I'm not either.
Well, we can do that.
Oh, Peter Ellison is here though. Let's, all right, I've unmuted you, Peter. You can unmute yourself. Can you do that?
Hi, Julia.
Hi.
Good evening, members of the commission. Yeah, I can speak for the project if you'd like me to give an update from the last meeting.
Sure, that would be
Yeah,
great.
that'd be good.
Okay, so last meeting, the commission decided it would be helpful to perform a site visit. So we did that last week. We were out there, and I think probably the most evident thing that myself and all the commissioners noticed first off was that this is not a fun area to be a pedestrian or on a bicycle. So I think everyone could see the purpose and intent of the project is valid and needed in this area. So we were able to take a look at the A-series wetlands on Parker Street and look at the area of wetlands that would be impacted, as well as the area across the street that will be where the replication area is to be located. And I think I'll let the commission speak for themselves on what they thought of that, but I thought the meeting was productive and it went well. While we were out there, we did discuss the project with one of the employees at the Ace Hardware on the corner. And one of the issues that they did want us to account for was a drain from their parking lot that outlets, they think, in proximity to the impacted wetland area. And we did discuss that with them. This was an issue that Jordy Vining of the city had already discussed with the owner of Ace Hardware. And we have a note on our plan for the contractor to keep an eye out for that pipe and that outlet. And if necessary, if they do run into that pipe, to extend that pipe and connect it into the drainage system that we are proposing as part of the project to make sure that the water continues to have a place to flow to.
Could you expand a little bit on keep an eye out for? Are you going to do some test pits and some exploring to see that, or are you just?
Yep, I can speak to that. So essentially, we have a note that says that calls out the potential drainage area based on what the employees have seen in the past. Our surveyors were not able to locate that pipe. We think it's buried under sediment somewhere in the vicinity of the corner of the Ace Hardware property. So our note says, potential drainage outlet from hardware store. Contractor shall maintain existing outlet and, if necessary, extend outlet to new location to be coordinated with the engineer and the city. And essentially, they won't need to do test pits because the area where they're going to be looking for that outlet is right underneath the shared use path. So the contractor will be out there excavating out all the material under the shared use path anyways to put in a clean fill material. So as they're digging, they'll be able to see that note, and the city and TEC will alert them that there could be a drainage pipe in that area.
Can I just add something, Peter, to that? I just want to make sure that the information is correct, because I believe that it was the equipment manager from Taylor Rental who we were speaking with, and that the flooding and the issue that we were talking about was happening at the Taylor Rental building and not the hardware building. And I know they're right next to each other, but if your contractors are looking for something that they think is coming from Kelly's, they might be looking in the wrong place.
Julie, he actually,
Right?
the same guy owns both places.
Right.
Oh, okay.
So he's an employee of the owner, and the drain they were talking about is right in front of the entrance to
Kelly's?
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah.
I misunderstood. I thought he was talking about Taylor Rental.
I'm of the opinion that we need to find that drain pipe before we start. You know, the employee said it was a 4-inch pipe coming out of that manhole in front of a hardware store, which I find hard to believe that a 4-inch pipe could handle the water if there's as much coming off State Street as he claims.
Yeah.
So I think it's a much bigger pipe than 4. And I think we need to know ahead of time what we're faced with, rather than trying to change the plans as we keep going. I don't know if anybody-
Although, as Jordy mentioned, where that pipe outlets is somewhere back there behind that wetland area, and it's blocked from reaching the shared path by that upland island. And so the water that would be coming out of there during a storm when it would be flooding would have to actually flow around the upland island and down into the drain that leads it into the drainage system underneath the shared youth path. That's how I understood it at the site visit. That's why they didn't seem overly concerned. Peter, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yep. If the pipe outlets to, like Jordy suspected, behind that upland island area, then our project will still be accounting for that stormwater flow. We're providing a head wall for all that water to continue to get where it goes now.
Yeah, for what it's worth, there's an inconsistency on what the person from Kelly's was saying, because he was describing it as bubbling up in right where the swale is.
Yeah, and that's I think part of the confusion is
Well, that's why I'd like to get it clarified before we get going.
Well, again, it's the design, in the city, how they handle it is their thing. But it seems to me if somebody could go out there during this rain condition, if it ever rains again, and actually see something of that sort and confirm, one way. I mean, you'd think under a heavy rain situation, you would see something happening there.
Yeah, well, I've been there actually during a heavy rain, and but the only thing I saw was that it was ponding up extensively right in front of Kelly's, so it wasn't getting through anywhere.
Yeah, which could be a result of a 4-inch pipe that's undersized.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, what I would typically suggest in this situation is that the commission could incorporate a condition that would require test pits prior to construction. Unfortunately, in this case, the spot where the potential drainage outlet is a wetland. So I don't think we want. I mean, I guess I would ask the commission: would you want to see test pits performed in the actual wetland resource area, where we suspect the drainage outlet is located?
Were there any plans either from Kelly's or from the city that would have where that drain pipe should be?
Yeah, I know.
Go ahead.
I know Jordy had reached out to the owner on several occasions, and I don't think that any record plans were available.
Right.
Yeah, I reached out to the owner. I tried to search around online at the registry, and I reached out to our engineering department looking for any plans that might show something, and came up with absolutely nothing. Part of the issue here is that presumably this pipe, however big it is, sort of runs diagonally underneath his building.
Right.
And we are definitely not in a position to be sort of chasing that pipe and replacing it. And in fact, I was a bit surprised that they could not find it, because early on in this process, when I was talking to him about that, he said that he had supposedly annually gone out and then cleared it out. And I said, great, so just get your guys out there in the spring and find it for us. And he said they couldn't find it.
Oh,
So it's a bit of a mystery.
yeah.
So is the city not responsible for maintenance of that pipe?
Not a city pipe. No, the city is definitely not responsible for that.
Okay.
Although they made it sound like it's handling city drainage from the roadway and everything. And that was maybe why they wanted us involved.
Well, I don't think that, yes, there's no question that there's water coming down State Street because of the grade there. And just because everything's just open asphalt and that's a low point, that's where the water heads. It's a much more extensive thing to try to figure out how, with curbing or something like that, how stormwater coming down State Street would be redirected. So, our design approach has been to try to do no harm and to understand the existing conditions as much as possible. And basically, minus having any knowledge of where this thing is from public or private sources, except in the most sort of general area, it seems that the water is coming somewhere into there in the wetland area. Our project will be doing excavation where the path is going to go, so that if there's if the pipe is actually there, presumably our contractor will find it. If it's where we suspect it is, which is back behind that sort of upland island piece, and it's just sort of coming into the wetland somewhere, then as Peter was outlining, then that water is just going to keep doing what it's always done, which is making its way around the upland island. And we've provided the pathway for that.
So if it does drain into the wetland, whether it does or doesn't, we don't know, is the pipe that you're sizing to be under the pathway large enough to handle that?
Yes. Yeah, the pipe under the pathway is 12 inches, so it's sized to accommodate all that flow. Yep.
And how about the pipe under the road as well?
Yep, also a 12-inch pipe.
Okay, I guess we'll see what happens.
Well, that would address the neighbor's concern. If the pipe is sized to be big enough to handle the drainage that would be backing up into their property, then that's pretty much all the city can do at this juncture.
I do think it's an important point that Paul brought up, because I've seen the same thing, that in heavy rains, it's not like water is getting sucked down that drain in front of the Kelly's front entrance. So it's not going to be a situation where if there's ponding there, I don't think it'll be legitimate to say, oh, we've blocked their system. If they clearly have a problem and it just filters its way through today, and we want to make sure it can continue filtering through. But I think that's the extent to which we can sort of accommodate that flow.
Right. I would expect there would be no change in their flooding of their parking lot in front of the store, unless while you're doing this work, you accidentally come upon a broken pipe. But,
Yeah.
I mean,
Clear out stuff that's in front of the broken, or at the end of the broken pipe.
Sorry,
So-
Joe, what?
Unless it, during work, it actually clears out an area where the pipe's backing up, then it
Yeah.
would make it even better.
True.
right. But,
Okay. What else?
Any questions about the wetland replication area and how that's going to be handled?
No, I think that was pretty clear. Okay.
Yeah. Jordy, is there going to be a wetland scientist overseeing the wetland replication construction?
I believe it's Mary Rimmer, is that right?
Mary Rimmer. If so, that's great. If not, there should be someone on board. We should confirm that. We can put a special condition in that it needs to be overseen by a certified wetland scientist, monitored for 2 years, and all of those special conditions.
Pete, are you still there?
The plan does call for oversight by a professional wetland scientist. But if the city standard is 2 years, then that would probably make sense to include as a condition.
So how does that work functionally with, we have presumably Mary, who's been part of the team to date, and there's the construction administration phase. And then in terms of 2 years out, does that mean that the city, through the planning office or maybe the Parks Department, but essentially periodically hires Mary to go out there and inspect and monitor?
I would just say that, I mean, you probably already have a contract with her, right? But if that could be extended to include or modified to include the annual monitoring for 2 years for survival and success of the replication area, then that might be a way to do it. Otherwise, you could do a separate contract with her. We've done that for some wetland monitoring with her in the past too.
Okay, but it's basically annual monitoring for 2 years. So
Yeah, yep. After each growing season to check for survival of the plantings and make sure that hydrology is correct and replant anything that has failed. Just to make sure that you get over 70% or 75% survival of wetland species at the end of 2 years.
Okay. All right. Do we have anything else?
No.
Can I did not see anything. Anybody from the public have any comments? Seeing no raised hands, I'm going to assume not. What do we want to do?
Motion to close the public hearing?
Second?
Okay, Paul Healy,
Yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
Jane Sender,
Yes.
Ron DeCola. I'll take that as a yes, Ron.
Yes, yeah, sorry, gotta unmute.
And I say yes. All right. Thank you, guys.
Great, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is Michael and Karen Costello, 249, 251 Water Street. Notice of intent continued from technically May 19th. Let me get that stuff up, Julie.
Yep, working on it.
Okay.
Okay, this is, let me just allow Tom and the project team to be unmuted. And yeah, Tom, you can go ahead and let me know if you want to use your original presentation slides or if you'd like me to go to the revised plans.
Yeah, I think let's just jump to the revision plans, which are at the end of the revision submission.
Is that this?
No, I think that's the original. Well, no, that is.
No, this is revised.
Okay, that's okay. So that's a revised. And also I've got Steve Sawyer, Eileen Graff, and Lisa Mead are all here on behalf of the project, and in the audience out there are the Costellos as well, I believe. Let me go over what we did. Since we've had our last hearing, we held a visit, reviewed site conditions. We took a lot of the comments from the last hearing, considered those, and put them all together into some plan updates and changes. what you're looking at, we actually now have a plan set of 3 plans. The plan in front of you shows the different foundation lines, and we put a color-coded key off to the right under the stamp there, trying to make that easier to read. So that's one thing that came out of the last hearing. The other thing, because of the concerns about what we had in front of the structure to protect it, was basically a foundation wall with kind of a filled patio behind it that held up the second floor deck and addition. We changed that over to a deck, and it's now supported by columns. It's open underneath, and we put stone in there. I think it might show better on the next plan.
Okay. On this one?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it.
Would you want the plan view?
So yeah, no. So if you zoom down,
Yep.
you can see where there's text within that area that just basically says rock under. So
Oh, yes.
what will happen is
Proposed
any water.
proposed deck with rocks under.
Right. So now that any flood water would basically be dispersed by the rock underneath rather than having a wall there. The other thing we did is we took the curbing around that patio that you see right there that had been vertical, and we turned it into sloped granite edging. So we got rid of a lot of the vertical elements, and the stairs are now open tread. What I can do is turn it over to Steve Sawyer, who can go in a little more detail, the engineering updates that were done, things like backflow preventers, and I think he made some slight changes to the grading to make that work. So, but I think what we've done is we've come up with a change to the project that actually improves, I think, the way floodwaters behave on the site over the current condition, where you have kind of the vertical face of the house goes, right down to grade with nothing to break up the energy. And behind it, you've got a foundation that would not do so well if it was subject to any fast moving water. So with that, I think, Steve, do you want to describe some of the changes you made in terms of adjusting grades to make sure that water wasn't flowing off site and things like that?
There we go. Steve, you can talk to unmute yourself.
There we go. I see it now. Okay. Steve Sawyer with Design Consulting. Based on the site visit and the concerns of the commission, a couple of things we did, as Tom mentioned. If you pan up a bit, just that seawall again, the section.
Oh, up here?
Yeah, just go up. Yeah, there we go. And pan a little bit right. There we go. So the top of that seawall is roughly, what is that? I believe it is 11, a little bit over 11. So what we did is if you had say you had a flood of around 10 or so, and you had a lot of wave action that ran over, had any kind of velocity, as I mentioned, we took all the sharp edges off, so the water would run up and run through the stairway, the open stairs, and then dissipate. The energy would dissipate. Prior, as you remember, we basically had a filled patio there with a face. So it would be some at that face where those two stair treads are. There would be some refracting off of that in those types of events. So I think this is, we heard the concerns, and this would definitely mitigate any of the wave energy. It would be absorbed through the stairs and underneath the building. Important note: once we get up above elevation 11 into 12, all bets are off here. It may tend to break the wave energy down, because prior there was the original. It's better than the original house because it's just a vertical face that would refract it. Now at least it'd be some obstructions to break the waves down, so you wouldn't have a vertical face where the waves would tend to refract off in different directions. That is a substantial improvement for what the original design, as far as mitigation of any potential impacts surrounding the lot, and with these improvements. So the other was the the area drains. So what I did is I dropped them a couple tenths just so that they were in a low point, and we have backflow preventers on those. So if you have a flood event, or if say we have an event that's elevation 9 and there's a lot of wave energy, and you get, on this lot or surrounding lots, you get splash over. Basically, the water would flow back to those area drains and flow back through, flow through the pipe system. So long if the static head, the elevation of the ocean was below the elevation of our grate, it would tend to drain water back out into the ocean and relieve any ponding behind the wall, because the wall really ends up as a dam, not allowing the water to flow back out to its whatever the equilibrium point is. So with that, we provided an improvement there, along with the backflow preventers in each of the area drains to prevent any surge or storm or wave energy or ocean flow flowing up and into the lot through those structures. So that's a major, those are the improvements. We did add a fence. There was a split rail. They have a dog, so we added a split rail fence to the right side of the property, pan back up to the site plan.
Okay, oh, sorry. Yep, got you.
So what happens is right at the back of the at the interface where the driveway ends, the permeable driveway ends, and you have the 2 track pads. There'll be a gate there, so if there's any additional cars, they can pull them in and off the street there. But there's a gate, there's a fence gate that runs across the driveway there and then runs back to the seawall. That's just going to be a typical fence, I think, that's done out. It's just going to be a split rail fence with that black wire mesh, so it blends in. You really don't see it. So that'll provide basically full
Perfect.
flow through in that. I think that's about it. I think that's all.
So, yeah, I'm not hearing anything.
Oh, if someone needs to mute, who's not hearing anything? Everyone okay?
I'm okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I think Steve was breaking up a bit now and then.
Yeah.
I don't know. Hopefully it's not my. Everyone's coming in smooth. Hopefully it's not my internet service, but.
Try to sign in on something else.
I can hear Jane, but Jane, you can't hear me?
I don't hear anything coming from Jane right now.
No.
Okay. I think Jane came onto the commission, I think, after this had already had its hearing open. So hopefully we can get that resolved before we get to the new hearings. I think this one and the next one,
Are we getting resolved?
Maybe I should raise my hand.
Okay. Yeah, I'm hearing somebody talking who.
Is that
Not
you,
sure.
Lisa?
Nope, not yet.
Oh, okay.
I think
Yeah,
I think Jane, we can hear Jane, but I don't think Jane can hear us.
Oh,
And
Yours
I do
now,
want to
Jane?
also,
Jane seems awful still too.
It's
I think
strange.
Jane
'cause
may have
he
frozen.
was speaking before the meeting, we transferred over.
Perhaps it's her internet access.
yeah, I can tell you in other towns that have had issues with sound, when they turn off the video, sometimes that reduces the bandwidth demand.
Yeah, that's.
Hey, Jane, do you want to try? Jane already turned off her video, so. Well, we can move forward while she works out her technical issues, because we do have a quorum.
Yeah, Jane dropped.
And she
Maybe
can't,
he's coming back in.
right, as
she
Tom
is.
suggested, Jane wasn't on this when it originally opened, so.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Jane's back.
Okay. I do want to just also remind the commission, the other thing that we are doing is we are replacing the drain line, working with the city to replace the drain line that currently runs under the structure and has no easement, and we'll be providing an easement for that. So, and as part of that, there'll be, I think, some fixing of the pavement or possibly the grate. Or I know right now you get a lot of ponding in front of the property, so I think there'll be some resolving of some puddles on Water Street as part of this, and the city will now have the benefit of a legal drain line. So
Yeah, Tom, if I could just pick up on that. This is
Yeah.
Lisa Mead telling McCost on behalf of the applicants, 30 Green Street, Newburyport. We did meet Jamie out there, Steve and Mike Costello and myself, and Jamie and Ron Keefe. And we did talk about where the easement would go, which is where it's shown on the plan. And it would be moved from underneath the house, and there would be an actual easement given because there isn't one existing now. And that ponding area would be fixed on Water Street. And the applicant will be paying for part of this, and the city will be paying for part of this because it's obviously a city drain, not properly with an easement, but the applicant will be picking up some of the costs for this as well. So obviously that's a public benefit as well.
Yeah, I do like the changes that you've made. I do like the whole rock underneath the back deck, which I think is a really good idea.
Yeah, I agree, and I think the backflow preventers makes an awful lot of sense. Sometimes you get an awful lot of water coming through those where the pipe outlets, and it gets a bit confusing as far as with the tide and so forth, as far as actually causing more harm than good. And the backflow preventer would alleviate that.
So, Mr. Chair,
Oops,
sorry, Steve, go ahead. I apologize.
no, it's okay. I got a question for you later. How salt tolerant are the plantings? Can they survive being flooded or just covered with spray?
Well, they were the planting list was done by Kim Turner, and she's well aware of the salty nature of the site. And I think that, I think they can, all these plantings can withstand some level of flooding. The question is the duration and how often it's repeated. Once you start getting salt buildup in soils, it's very difficult to get anything to grow. But if you have a single event flood, I mean, you really don't see vegetation death after floods along the river, even in stuff that you wouldn't normally want to plant there. I mean, even in landscape plantings, they can take single events like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, the thing is, keep in mind, we're on a tidal site, so likely the duration of any significant flooding is a tide cycle, and it might repeat again. But this isn't like in the actually even in the western suburbs where you've got like the Concord, Sudbury, Assabet rivers that sometimes are in flood stage for a month. You're going to be in flood stage for a storm duration, and that's it.
Okay.
So the answer is, I believe all the plantings that are in here should do just fine, even with a flood.
Okay.
Okay.
And Lisa, you're requesting a variance here, right?
Well, that was a great segue, Mr. Moore. So I actually, I'm going to go in reverse. I don't think we need a variance. I think we meet the performance standards. And I think that's verified by Steve's letter. So I think we meet this performance standards, and I think that Tom has set that out in his amended filing. And I think Steve has verified that. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, I think that the commission's regulation regarding historic houses is preempted. And I think that the applicant has gone through the process to make a determination that the house is historic, and continues to be historic with the renovations. There's an exemption for that under the state building code. It's actually a waiver under the state building code. And I think that your regulations related to historic houses in this district are preempted.
Can I just interject, Lisa? We don't have regulations related to historic houses. We just have our floodplain. But I'd like to just say I disagree that our regulations are preempted by the State Building Board of Appeals or whatever it is, because this is it's a different category of regulations. We're not trying to change the building code. We are implementing regulations related to the function of the floodplain in a different way. So it's akin to saying that regulations that would prohibit building a vernal pool don't apply because the building code would allow it to happen. They're two totally separate animals. So I'm going to disagree with that, but I do agree with you that I don't think that this requires a variance any longer. If the commission also agrees with that, it appears that you have been able to meet the performance standards through changes to the site plan and through the addition being on the second floor, essentially well above the projected base flood elevation.
Yeah, I agree that the preemption, though, I mean, it's a bit confusing, at least to me, on your letter, Lisa, as far as the project itself has lots of aspects that are outside of the building. And I don't know if you're suggesting that those are preempted as well, or as well as the building code, the requirements to do this in accordance, not just the elevation, but all the other things that would be put into buildings that are in a V zone.
Yeah, so David, and obviously I don't think we need to argue about it because I think that again I think we meet the performance standards. I think that
I think this project is a lot different than other projects, and I agree in that regard. I'm only reacting to your letter.
Okay, well, I'm not going to waste everybody's time arguing about it because I don't think it's relevant at this point.
Well, getting back to the question about the whether things are being built in accordance with FEMA, breakaway walls, things of that sort, is everything else, is the structural person with this feel that everything is appropriate in that regard? Take away the elevation aspect of it.
So the structural engineer looked at the property, understanding that it was historic and that we couldn't, that we were going to have to maintain the existing historic structure. And she was the one who had suggested having one of the foundation walls seaward of the historic wall. And if you recall that there's sort of a double layered foundation there. There's something that was newer than the historic. So yes, I mean, she is, in terms of what we've proposed, protects the more vulnerable part of the structure, which is the fieldstone foundation. Putting in that.
Yeah, I mean, that is all good, and all of that is good. And the elevation, it's pretty clear that what you're doing is fine in that regard. Yeah. I'm just asking if the recommendations and requirements of the building code beyond that are being looked at, and bottom line is I'd like to make sure if there was a flood that this house and what the additions are done properly in accordance.
Well, so with that regard, the additions are on the second floor. The expansion of living space, which is very modest, is on the second floor, well above the flood elevation. And we are actually doing things like removing the utilities from the existing basement and putting them up above in that bump out on the front porch. So we're actually making it more resilient. And Lisa can address the sort of specific how the code applies to it, but it's all been done in consultation with structural and with so we've tried to deal with mitigating things and doing the best design we possibly could with a historic home that really can't be elevated up.
Right,
So,
which is where the waiver comes in under the state building code for historic homes. And so Mike and Karen are very concerned also, as mentioned by the commission and as expressed by Mike and Karen out on the site visit, that to the extent that they can do things that would improve the existing conditions while retaining the historic structure, they have done that. So for example, as Tom suggested, the living space is on the expanded living space is on the second floor above the proper elevation. The utilities have been taken out of the basement, and then obviously to help break the flow in front of the house, we've changed the deck and added the rock. So to the extent that they can, they have certainly done that.
Hey, David, Mike Costello, I would just add, and I appreciate the comment because, clearly we're in the same boat. We want resiliency, but also balancing it with the historic nature. It would have been a much easier move for us to try to just take it down and drive under. But having said that, we did look at all the FEMA regs. Everything that we're proposing to with our builder is going to be off the FEMA list, whether it's flooring, insulation, windows, all of which will meet those FEMA standards.
Yeah, and that's exactly those were the aspects of it that I was concerned about. I didn't feel the waiver had anything to do with, well, it has stuff to do with it, but I mean, I didn't think the waiver would waive any of those.
It does actually, David, and that's not what Mike and Karen are doing, but actually the waiver does waive all of that stuff under the building code. It's just a blanket waiver.
Based on the one reference you cited, or is it
780 CMR 105 3.1.1?
Okay.
Right. If it's a historic structure and it continues to be a historic structure.
Okay, at this point, I'm satisfied with the design that you've done, and I appreciate the waiver. So I don't want to continue on this path either. I just want to make sure that things have been done right, that can be done right, and it sounds like that's what you're saying.
yeah, and I think so as noted, I think we've demonstrated in the updated narrative, and through the plan changes that I think we do have a path where we comply with the regulations completely. And we're actually improving, I think, flooding conditions over existing. So I think we've overcome that presumption that these things that we're doing have a negative effect. So we would ask the commission to issue an order of conditions approving the project.
Okay. Do we have anything else?
No.
Okay. Anything from the public? Raise your hand if so. I see no hands raised. What shall we do?
Motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
All right, Paul Haley,
Yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Dan Warshall. Okay, I see a thumbs up. David Vine,
Yes.
Jane Sender. Jane, is that a yes?
Yes, sorry.
Okay.
Jane can't vote on it. Sorry.
Yeah, Jane.
Oh, that's right, sorry.
Right.
Never mind.
I
You're right.
probably vote to close the public hearing, but it doesn't matter.
Okay, I'll avoid you, Ron, and I will vote yes.
Go, I just want to, I wasn't unable to unmute. I'm all set, but yes, for me.
It's a yes from you, okay.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay. Next item is Roy Cottignani, Sports Medicine North Orthopedic Surgery, care of Conserve Group, Inc., 20 Henry Graff Road. Notice of intent continued from 5/19, really. Okay.
Okay, Tom Hughes with Hughes Environmental Consulting. With me is also Brad McKenzie. So the plan updates that we submitted include a few things. One is the planning board hearings resulted in removing 2 parking spaces. So we actually increased the amount of green buffer. And those are in the bottom of the plan view on the left and the right. Is this the most recent plan that you've got up?
This is the updated plan. This is the most recent plan we got before
Right,
the last
okay.
meeting. Yeah.
Okay, so I think we want
You want to see?
perhaps the next sheet, but if you look in the lower left of the plan, you can kind of see where there's more of a corner, a green corner.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like down there and then at the sort of bookend of the parking lot.
No, lower left.
Lower
Sorry, yeah,
left.
so
Oh,
it's
over
lower
here.
left. Yep. All right, thanks, Brad. So right in here, you can see where there's more green space. We had parking that extended further in that area. So that was.
Sorry, I'm going to try a different view here. Just a sec.
Okay.
So that we can. All right, this is the landscape plan. This might be a little bit more helpful.
Right, and then and we'll go over some other changes as well. The other thing that we did is we did, sort of compensatory grading mitigation for the city engineer's suggestion that we grade off rather than having walls at the entrance. So remember, we had a little bit of impact to the swale. So what we've done, and I think I'll have you go to
grading
right, do you
plan?
remember which, is it C3?
C2.
C2.
The grading plan. Yeah.
The grading plan. Okay. Hold on a sec. I believe, is this the grading plan? No, this is not the
That
grading plan.
is go next one.
Down.
Next one front. There you go.
Yeah, okay. So if you can zoom down, you'll see that what we've done is we're cutting into this little upland area that is adjacent to the swale, and essentially widening out the swale, creating wetland, but also creating a little bit more storage in this little area. This is an area where the city has, I think it's double barrel culverts that run across to the drainage ditch on the other side. So it's actually kind of a nice spot to provide a little extra storage there.
Okay, Tom, is it this area right here?
Yes, exactly. You can see the grade lines in there. It's not a big area, but yeah, so we're dropping that elevation in there.
Yeah.
A little bit more capacity within the ditch. So it's, it gives us 384 cubic feet, I believe, of compensation for that. And then the other things that we provided to you have to do with the operation and maintenance of the landscape, which was a separate document. I can't remember before the last hearing if I put it all together into one.
Oh, the invasive species management?
Well, we've given you the invasive species management plan,
Yeah.
but we also gave you an O&M for the ongoing landscape. If you recall, you wanted
Got it.
so that people could, whoever's maintaining the landscape. I think it's on it's the landscape maintenance plans that were submitted 5/27.
Yep. Okay, hold on. I'll see if I can find that.
Yeah, they are on the city website.
There are 4 sheets and they're half-size plans.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, we did them so basically, anybody should be able to print them from a printer that can at least do an 11/17.
Landscaping, yes, here, we got it.
Yeah,
I'll bring
so
it
if you
up.
open that up, yeah, we can go through it, but it's,
This is it.
yeah. Okay, so if you go sort of sheet by sheet, what you'll see is that we added things like dimensions, you know, dimension of the width, the edge of parking. You know, I think there's a couple posts that we put in just where in places where you couldn't easily measure it. So like you can see behind the building in the upper left, you can see at that turning point off the building. Yeah, so there's like a post there. So we added posts in places that weren't easily, you know, hey, it's a 5-foot strip off this type thing. So we've given something, and then we've put notes on how often things are mowed and when in there. So, you know, the pollinator meadow is once a year. You'd have to zoom down because I can't remember the conservation mix, how often that's done, but each item is done that. So now when somebody, to your point from the last hearing, when somebody is charged with maintaining the landscape of the site, they clear map and clear guidance that kind of says what gets done, where it is, and how often. And then the last thing we did is if you see the areas in blue on that plan, those are the invasive management plans that we propose to do. We are looking at dealing with invasives between the site and Graff Road. In there's a bunch of woody vegetation. There's also some Phragmites. The Phragmites is growing around fairly nice alders. So we've got a method for if we've got a complete monoculture of Phragmites, it's essentially apply an herbicide. If it is scattered around other vegetation, it's more of a bloody glove or an injection method that would be used. The woody vegetation would be cut into and triclopyr applied, and then it gets watched and observed to its death, and then gets removed afterwards. The invasives work would start after the site work is done, because a lot of the invasives on site are going to be grubbed out in the construction part of it. So, you know, once the grading is kind of complete, that's when we'll start that invasive work. And then we, in the invasive plan, you know, we talk about planting these areas with some of the same species that we had proposed to plant in the buffer, with the idea that all of these areas would be, you know, native, you know, 95% native by the time we're done. I do note that in this area, it is nearly impossible to completely, for the life of a site, eradicate invasives because there's so much around it, and they only own so much land. But you know, we do have this as something that we'll get them under control, and then turn it over to sort of part of the regular landscape to try to keep them under control. So I think with that, I think that we've addressed all of the concerns that, or items that we discussed at the last hearing. And I don't know, Brad, is there anything else you want to add?
There were just one other minor revision that the planning board had requested in addition to eliminating a few parking spaces, is that we added a concrete pad for a bike rack up near the main entrance along the face of the building.
That's the gray square on
the gray
this?
square adjacent to that handicap.
Gray rectangle.
Where is that?
On the left-hand side of the building. Where
No, it's
oh, sorry, right-hand side?
It's the right-hand side of the building. The
Right here?
Right there, yes.
Yeah, okay.
So that's a bike rack that the planning board had requested that we add to accommodate 10 bikes. That's the extent of the changes. Tom summarized everything else.
Okay, I think with that, Brad and I are both available to answer questions from the commission and move forward. And the planning board, Brad, the planning board has approved this, is that right?
Planning board approved the project, yes.
Okay.
At the last meeting 2 weeks ago.
And Christensen and Sergi, or I should say Phil Christensen has signed off on the stormwater plan as well.
Yes.
And did you guys share the invasive species control with the planning board? The plan?
I did not.
Okay.
The information was provided, but they didn't discuss it in any detail. It was just part of the documentation referencing this plan you're looking at right now.
Okay.
And I communicated with Caitlin Sullivan, who's the staff for the planning board, and let her know that we would have a special condition in our order of conditions that would cover implementation of that invasive species program so that the planning board didn't need to worry about it.
I do think that what we're doing, especially doing the work towards Graff Road, I think is in line with what I would think the planning board would want. It'll really have a much cleaner look from Graff because it's the invasives that are really kind of the mess that's there, and then the natives that go in will be a little bit prettier to look at. So I mean, I think it's really a win-win for both boards, but it's really more under you guys in terms of the detailed review of it.
Yeah. Well, the chair, Bonnie Sontag, had contacted me about that. She was certainly interested in it. Well, this looks good to me.
Tom, are you going to be the one overseeing the invasives control program?
I sure as heck hope so. I mean, my contract right now is to get them through permitting, and I really like working with them, and I like the group that's going in there. So it is my hope that I will be working with them on an ongoing basis.
I believe you will.
I think we'll have a special condition that a wetland scientist needs to oversee and monitor that work.
Okay.
Sounds good. Do we have anything else?
No. Nope.
Anything from the public? Please raise your hand if so. I see no raised hands. I got a motion?
Motion to close the public hearing?
Second,
Okay, Paul Healy,
yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jan and Ron, you are now officially part of all the rest of them.
Great.
Okay.
Okay.
Next item is Mark and Kim McTika.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm going to pronounce it that way. 37 Reservation Terrace, notice of intent.
Yep. Hi, Tom Hughes with Hughes Environmental Consulting. I apologize, I didn't do a presentation file for this, but if you can just scroll down kind of real quickly to maybe start at the aerial photograph, which will be the one right after USGS, yeah. And the blank pages are just for double-sided printing. So this is a site. This is the 2019 aerial photograph. I think if you look, you can see that the left-hand side of the house there, the western side, is actually encroaching onto the adjacent property. There is an actual easement that covers that. The property with the single-family home with an outbuilding, driveway, some concrete stairs. It's a fairly heavily impacted site as is right now. If we can then go on to, I think the site photos is probably a decent one to look at. So this is 37 Reservation Terrace. Again, you can see sort of a big driveway, the existing home. If you can look in the upper left, you can see that there's concrete stairs that get you into that house on that front porch. This house has a full basement. And if you just want to just sort of pan through the photos, I mean, I think you can kind of get a sense of the site. Um, so, you know, I think this gives you a good flavor of kind of what the site looks like on the today. If we can then go to the site plan. Okay, so little confusion in that the PDF doesn't have a profile view. I think the paper versions I submitted did. I emailed off the PDF with the profile version, but it's irrelevant sort of because profile views here.
You mean that the elevations like this
Yeah,
one?
yeah. No, there was an elevation on the bottom of the last iteration of the site plan, but this is good enough. So what we're doing, we're removing concrete steps. We're doing first and second floor additions that total 210 square feet of living space, additional space. So it's a very modest project, and it's mostly infill over the existing developed site. There's a little bit of straightening out of the driveway that occurs, and then the areas that are where the driveway is removed from get planted. Very minimal impact. The additions are over 2 feet above grade. They line up with the existing first floor of the house. The basement stairs, you know, to get down the basement, the bulkhead stairs need to be rebuilt. I think that's really most of what happens on the ground other than the driveway. And if we want to zoom down a little bit more, you can kind of see that set of stairs right there.
I'm having a
Okay,
hard time.
Actually, so while we're here, if you look at the tan areas where the additions are occurring on the site, and then you look on the existing conditions to your left, you can see that each of the areas where we're doing the work is already covered by something. So when you kind of compare the two, but if you look at those bulkhead stairs, and you can see the note with the arrow pointing concrete steps down, and it says rebuild. There's a full basement, and those stairs just are in need of some care. There are concrete steps that currently access the house off the driveway that are being removed. It's a relatively low impact project, elevated up on pilings, located above the flood elevation as well. I think this area is AE9. And the you get a couple of feet. I think the bottom of the bottom elevation is like over 10 and a half or so of the addition. That's what that profile did show. But if you look at the architecturals, you can kind of see that. I did email that. I don't know if you can actually pull that up. I did email the one with the profile.
Okay, let me just see if I can find that.
Yeah, it was when I was preparing tonight that I saw that.
Okay. For it.
There's an outdoor shower being added also?
Yeah, that is at the sort of northern end of the building. And I think I might have Eileen speak to you about the details of that. But I think it's just sort of low-tech outdoor shower.
Tom, I don't have the other view that you said you sent. Just for some reason, it wasn't in the file that I have. Might have been online.
Okay, that's all right. I think that the architecturals we provided you give you the same information. They just show you that you have clearance above grade.
You want me to switch to that right now? So we can take a look?
Yeah. And then I think I'll have Eileen talk to you about the shower area after. But if you can, so you zoom in, you can kind of see how we've got clearance above grade. It is above the flood elevation. You can see that shower area in the upper right there.
Right here.
The upper right elevation view, yes, and there.
Right.
You can see that, you know, it's open so you can see the feet, but it is sort of gently screened because it's a shower area.
Is that over lawn?
The current condition, I mean, Eileen may be able to answer. I can't remember what's on that side. Are
Can
you
you
on?
hear me? I'm sorry. It's Eileen
Yes.
Graff.
Yeah.
Graff Architects, 2 Liberty Street. It's sort of a mix. Some of it is sort of grassy and others, and then I would say 50-50 in that area around the corner. It's not a lot of travel or impact currently, so it's had time for things to grow on that side. Just because if there were a side that were sort of back a house, that would be it, because the front has the passage with the front door and the back has all the activity with the back deck. And it seems as though it's sort of a play area, gardening area on the back side. So this is the quietest area on the property. We're giving opportunity for more growth.
So how do you get to this shower? Is there a pathway being put in, or?
We actually hadn't discussed that as far as how to get there, and we can put the clamshell type of path. That is I think something that would be really nice there, and it would most likely be from the backside, as that's most frequently the way in is from the back.
So when you're
I
talking,
think.
when you're saying 50-50, is that 50-50 lawn grass and beach grass?
I wouldn't call it beach grass, actually.
It's what I call remnant lawn. It's overgrown lawn.
Yeah.
The site for, in terms of any areas that you say anything longer than lawn, is more or less areas that used to be a sort of manicured lawn that have been let go. There's really not a lot of areas of the site that are vegetated with dune grass. It's a heavily impacted site, and there is a lot of wear around the perimeter of the structure. I just couldn't recall that specific area, but.
Tom, is there any proposal to improve the landscape of this site? I know you're not disturbing much of it, but given that there will be walkway patios, things like that.
Yeah, so we're doing a couple things. One is where we're removing some structure. I think if we go back to the site plan. Where we're removing structure, we're putting in, I think, a patio in that area. Is that, yeah.
Yeah, clamshell patio is called for in the application. I'm just sort of wondering, we don't have a landscape plan, so it makes it kind of hard to understand, how this is all going to work.
Right. We can provide you, I think, with a more detail of the landscape. The area, if you look at the driveway shape, it's kind of got this little hook off to the left.
Mm-hmm.
Would be planted.
Right here.
Yeah, down in there. But as I said, most of this is over areas that are completely impacted right now.
Yep.
Little in terms of, if any, there's barely any measurable vegetation impact from what's happening. I suppose the shower would probably be. We could certainly provide you.
Right, although with the shower and the patio, even though it's already disturbed, you're adding the shower and the patio and some pathways and things. What's happening is then there will be no possibility for future sort of vegetation in those areas. So it might be nice to propose some new vegetation in the areas that you can do that now.
Yeah, and we could do that. I mean, I think in terms of meeting the vegetation standard of no impact, I think we're there, but I think we could provide you with some additional plantings if the commission wanted to, condition a landscape plan be submitted showing some additional plants. The site, if you look at where the patio is going, there's the bulkhead stairs right there. And that area is sort of well worn from the use of the bulkhead. And there's a lot of sort of wear on the site as it currently stands anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there are some opportunities where we could do some work. The other thing is, I think the 65th Street area, if I remember right, which is a paper street in that area, got a big knotweed stand. Unfortunately, most of that is off the property. Any of that that's on the property, we certainly could look at tackling, but it's tough to deal with when it's so dense offsite.
So I'd like to see on a plan how you're going to get to that shower and what materials, and I guess I presume that you're going to use that shower when you're coming from the beach. So, you know, you have to trek down the driveway and go all the way around the back. Be a lot easier to go in the front, but
If I could speak to that too, it probably is the shortest distance, but it's funny, it's tight over there. So it's not the easiest path in, but we can certainly look at that possibility.
well, I'm not proposing that you do that. I just said people might do that just because it is easier. It might be easier to block it off so they can't if you really want them to use it in the back.
Understood.
You know, maybe plant some shrubbery there that to around that corner of the house so that they won't go that way.
Yeah, we can look at how people will access that shower. Certainly either use vegetation or fence or both, you know, like a split rail or something if we wanted to deter people from going.
Are you proposing to remove the artificial turf?
Yes.
Yeah, so the artificial turf, I think, is what's becoming
The clamshell patio. Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, right. So I mean, that there is an improvement, and they're both recreational, but one will disperse during a major storm in dune sand, and one won't.
Got it.
And you know, I've never been a fan of artificial turf because if it does end up in a storm getting carried out into a salt marsh, that area will essentially get killed. So
the other thing is this is a pretty big renovation project. I know there's some sort of minor expansion on the exterior, but the whole project is a lot of work. I'm just anticipating that, you know, we always have a condition about any destruction of on-site vegetation needs to be replaced with native vegetation, and there's a lot of grass there right now and vegetation that if you were going to replace it should not be replaced as lawn grasses, but dune grasses and things like that.
yeah, I do think given the size of the driveway there, I think there's the ability to put dumpsters and you know,
yeah, good point.
Everything in that driveway is there. So, you know, if a contractor is careful, they shouldn't have to do that. But I think, you know, we're aware that in the event lawn grass gets torn up, it doesn't get replaced with lawn grass. And, you know, and that is one of your standard conditions. So that would be acceptable. But I would just encourage the contractor not to mess it up if, you know.
We just don't want to see that whole grass area like reseeded, you know, when this is over to make it a nice green lawn, sodded or whatever. Just make sure that doesn't happen. We can put special conditions in about that.
Yep.
And if I could also add, as we look at that 65th Street sort of path, and then on the back corner, it's part of the easement piece of the property, there's that corner of mulch. I mean, certainly with the abutting American beach grass right there, I could see spreading some of that towards the property, replacing that mulch area with bleeding in some of that beach grass in that corner. I think that's certainly an area that can take that.
I think that's a great idea, especially since we also don't allow mulch on the island, and it's showing in the proposed as well as the existing. And I get that it's existing, but if there's any opportunity to make improvements to the landscaping on the site, that would be beneficial. So maybe Steve, you were asking for a plan that would show materials and et cetera for the pathway and other things on the site, do you want to just have them submit like a landscape plan that shows all these little areas?
Yeah, I think that would be okay, but are we continuing to another next meeting, or would it be the condition that they do that? And
That's up to you guys and how you
Well,
feel
in
about it.
that regard, do they have a DEP number?
Yes.
Yep.
It's 051-01038, I believe.
Okay, so that's taken care of.
Yeah, and we're happy to provide, if it was a condition, it's better. Zoning has approved it, and it would allow us to move forward, and we'd be happy to maybe get a planting plan / landscape plan in, prior to the pre-construction meeting or something along those lines.
yeah, I'd just like to see something, review it before you get started.
Yeah, I think something should be shared with the commission.
Okay, would you be okay with something being submitted for review and approval of the commission? So
as a condition, so like prior to start of construction on site, a landscape plan shall be submitted for review and approval of the commission.
Right.
Yeah, and that way we could at least sort of move forward on the one hand. And, I agree with Eileen that mulch area is a great opportunity, and it may be that it may be, depending on what the client wants, maybe it's dune grass, or maybe it's, a beach plum or area or something, Definitely there's some good opportunities on this site to add some vegetation, and we can detail walking paths and things like that as well in that, and make sure that we show you that there's still a vegetative balance and some improvement.
Tom, what are the straight lines coming off the back of the house in the back? Is that where the turf is, or?
No, I think that was meant to distinguish between the
Easement.
area. The grass that was sort of in the easement area, or the area of the easement. I think the only place you don't see it is where there's labels. So that's property that they have a right to occupy, but they don't own.
Okay, so the mulch is in that easement area, is that correct? Or
Yeah, and we would have to confirm. I'm making an assumption here that we would have the right to remove the mulch and plant there. And I don't know if Lisa is still on.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you know the answer to that? Do we have the right to remove the mulch? And
I believe that they do. I'll double check on that, but there are other areas of mulch that Eileen was talking about as well. So,
right.
But those cross hatches, Steve, are the easement area.
And who owns the easement? Who's the easement with? Or
well, so the fee interest, the underlying interest, is owned by the abutter, and the easement, the right to use it and keep that the structure there, has the rights are with the Mitigation, the applicants.
Okay. For some reason, I thought the easement was out on 65th Street, but I guess it isn't.
No. It's with the adjacent private property.
Okay.
No, so in this section, 65th Street is just, it's a paper street with a sand path that meanders down through it.
Okay.
But
So any plantings or anything else that you would do in that easement, you have the ability to do it, or you don't, or you have to check into it?
I'll double check. I'm almost, it's, I didn't pick it up and review it right before the meeting, but they have a right to maintain the structure and the areas and access and egress. I'm almost positive they have a right to maintain that and make plantings and things like that. So we'll double check for you. And if we do, obviously we'll come back and propose the removal of that mulch and some plantings in there. And if we don't, then we'll address the planting areas in the rest of the site.
Okay, so given that, I think I'd like to continue to the next meeting before we move forward on this.
Yeah, it sounds like there's just enough in that's needed that be better just to continue.
One other question before we continue, or is there a statement that there's not a substantial improvement on this project, that doesn't represent a substantial improvement?
That's
Yeah.
a good question, David. That's a really good question. And actually, the applicant, the owner did do the paperwork necessary to show that it wasn't a substantial improvement. He did it several months ago. So we do have that in the office. We have a new form that is to be filled out. And in this case, it was just under the 50% increase by like $1, if that.
Second one in a
So,
row.
yeah.
But I have a question on that. I mean, with the improvement of the house, converting the sunroom to living space, doesn't the exterior wall have to be removed?
Yes.
Eileen, perhaps you can address that.
Absolutely. So, Eileen Graff, yes, the exterior wall will be removed. It has, I would say, subpar posts right now, so it would be replaced with piles and then appropriate structural framing to hold the newly constructed sunroom.
So the exterior wall, both on the first floor and the second floor, or just on the first floor?
It currently is a single story, and it will continue to be a single story. It just will be stretched out wider. So that area where you say you see sort of hashes within the sunroom converted, the space right below it has an open deck, and so that's the area that will be enclosed as well.
And so I misspoke. I think I mentioned second floor, and there, I guess there's no second floor.
And
but I think it's only the exterior wall on that area. It's not the exterior wall being replaced house-wide.
I also misspoke about the paperwork for the substantial improvement. In this case, it has to meet both the 20%, 25% and 50% rule. The 25% rule of a 25% increase in square footage is not met in this case. So they're able to stay under that threshold.
Right.
And it was just under the 50%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, it's 210 square feet of additional living space. It's not,
Right.
It's not.
Right.
If I could also address the easement area, I just pulled the easement up. The owners have complete right to use the easement area as if it were their own. So they can make the improvements and remove and change the landscaping however they wish.
Good.
Okay.
So with that, I was just wondering if you could do the condition that Tom suggested, that in fact the order conditions be issued with a condition that the landscape plan has to come back to the commission for review and approval prior to the issuance of a building permit.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Yeah, that would give us more time to line people up, because if we have to bring in anybody other than me, and we'll have to sort that out to do the planting plan, that'll take time. So we would appreciate that.
The other thing is our next meeting wouldn't be until July 7th. It's 3 weeks instead of 2. So that's quite a while.
Yeah.
Okay.
We appreciate that.
All right. Do we have anything else? Okay. Lynn Smith, I saw your hand up earlier. Did you want to speak?
I'm going to allow her to. Lynn, if you unmute yourself right now, you'll be able to speak.
Thank you very much. No, I just wanted to clear up. You guys were wondering if that was grass or not, and I'm on 65th and walk there every day, and it is in fact grass. So I just thought I'd pitch in.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Can I get a motion or not?
Motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
Highway waste.
Okay, Paul Healy,
Yeah,
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
Jane Sender,
Yes.
Ron DeCola,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Next item is Christopher Horan, Seacoast Homes LLC, 192 Northern Boulevard, notice of intent.
Okay, Tom Hughes with Hughes Environmental Consulting. Eileen Graff is the architect on this one as well. She's with us tonight, and I think Lisa's there in case we need her for anything. Chris Horan is also logged in, who is the applicant. So this is, if you remember, you approved 2 other structures for Chris last summer. One was, I think, 563rd, and the other was 3, but they were basically the next 2 structures over. At the time, Chris was looking at doing all 3, and it was sort of too much work at the time, so we kind of deferred doing the permitting on this lot. But this is a grandfathered lot with sewer access. And you can see from this photo that's on the cover of the NOI that, that it's been used for parking in the past. And there's also the driveway, the old driveway to the house next to it extended onto the property. It was to the left of the house, and you can kind of see it in that aerial. If we can go down to the other aerial, again, you can kind of see on this the parking areas and the areas where the vegetation has been impacted. Those areas do tend to be kind of along the road and in the corner of the property. If we can go to the flood map.
Before we do that,
Yeah.
Tom, is that house gone now and it's a vacant lot?
The house is being replaced right there. Yeah, that is under construction. I think it may be pretty close to complete.
It's
One
done.
you permitted last summer.
That's one of the new homes, correct?
Yeah,
Right.
right next to it.
Yeah. So if we can go to the flood map. Okay, if we can zoom in on that pin.
It's not very clear. I'm
Yeah,
sorry. Let
well-
me zoom out a little bit.
Yeah, okay.
we go.
So that's actually good right there. If you can look to the right of the pin, you can see the blurry gray area that is the house next to it. The green line runs right through it. So right to your right a little bit more. That's the house next to it right there. So the area where the pin is shown is actually in the middle of the street, but that is AO, and the area to the right is AE. So this
is all AE.
Right, so that's AE, and then there's a part of the site that's also AO. So now if we can go on to the site photos. There's not a lot to really look at here, but I think just to kind of show you, here are some of the areas that where there's sand on the site, which were documented. Some of it's sort of more or less pure sand, and some of it's covered with gravel from, years of snow plowing into the lot. And then if we can go down to the site plan. Okay, so what we've done is sort of a relatively small but skinny-ish house that sticks within the AE zone. So we're not proposing any construction or anything in the AO zone. Everything we're doing here is AE zone. We basically come in with a driveway to 20 feet off the, to the zoning setback, and then have this sort of skinny house. We have it's elevated up on pilings with parking under, and it has a utility chase and a couple stairways running along the side. It's 2 stories, and I think the total square footage of the house, and this is a ballpark number, is proposed something like 1,600-ish square feet. So, again, it's a fairly modest size for the house. I think zoning would probably allow more, but the AO zone does kind of limit you, and also the amount of vegetation on site limits us in what we can do. There is a table on the plan that I'm trying to think which way to direct you to it, but it,
I feel like it's up here.
yeah, so that's got the vegetation numbers, and see, we have the current total area of vegetation is 6589, and proposed when done is 6719. So we're planning on planting all of those sand areas that were identified on site, and obviously anything disturbed during construction will be planted with dune grass. And as we've done on the other sites, we sort of have the option of maybe coming into the commission with a plan showing some native shrubs, which I think, in fact, I think Julia, on one of the other sites, I think Mara just got you a plan with a whole bunch of shrubs, and much more shrubby than I think we've done for the minimum, and it's a nice plan. So we may do something similar here with supplementing the American beach grass, but at a minimum, we would be covering those sand areas shown with American beach grass and repairing any damage from construction. So we're pile supported. We're way up above the flood elevation. We've got the utility chase, I believe, is of the size allowed by the regulations. So it's elevated house up on pilings. It's actually pretty straightforward. But I'm happy to answer any questions, or if you have any design questions. I guess the other thing is we do have skirting coming down to 2.5 feet above grade at elevation 9, which is the flood elevation, which is the same thing we had proposed on those other structures that you already approved.
So, Tom, I went out and looked at the site this morning.
Yep.
And there's that huge shrub right in the middle.
Yeah.
Is that going away?
It's not entirely going away. I think it's a cluster of shrubs. If we can go to the photos, I think I'm trying to remember it. I know I've seen it a million times, but I find my gray matter is deteriorating during these COVID things. I think you're talking about
this one.
Yeah.
Right? It's a larger area.
That's the giant ugly
Yeah.
snake.
It's interior to the site more than that.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we would commit to replacing in kind any woody vegetation lost. I think it's multi-stem. I don't think that's just one area that you're talking about.
Yeah, you can see it in this picture. It's that big gray blob in the middle.
Yeah, I think that's a bunch of plants, and I think we are cutting into the edge a little bit. But the structure is kind of up and over it, so we don't really need to impact it very much. But there
Can
will
I say something, Tom? Tom?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. This is Chris Horan. If I could just comment briefly on this. It is it's not just one big shrub. It's a combination of a lot of shrubs bunched together, and we're hoping that it's not going to, there's a big sort of section of it right in the middle that we're hoping to keep and not tamper with. And like Tom said, anything disturbed, happy to replace in kind.
Yeah, I guess my only concern was, I mean, obviously it's been there for years and is pretty old, and you can't replace, something that size. You have to obviously start with something smaller.
Yeah, if it depends on the stem size. We may actually, I mean, we've had some luck with this. It's not always successful, but sometimes you can actually take an excavator bucket and scoop it up. And then, I mean, we might have to impact some dune grass to then plant it in an area, but we could kind of try to transplant it and water it. And then if it doesn't survive, replant it in addition to the other planting that we proposed. So it would sort of self-mitigate for any dune grass that we impacted doing it that way, but we can maybe try to save some of it and slide it right next to it.
Okay.
Can you just fill the commission in on how you determined the areas that were sand, gravel, et cetera, unvegetated? Who surveyed that? How was that done?
So I walked it with the surveyor, and
did you stake it out?
did not stake it out, but it was something that we walked in and I reviewed the site plan in the field. I did it in a lot of detail, sort of in the middle to late last summer, and then I went back with the plan now to take a look at it. And in fact, some of those areas are expanded just slightly, and I think it may be because, you know, parking has changed, and I think the parking out there is a little bit dynamic in terms of who's parking and where. So so I felt it was more honest to keep with the vegetation line that we surveyed last summer rather than, you know, I don't know whether some of the contractors from next door parked there or whatever, but so there are some sandy areas that are not shown on our plan that exist out there, and those will be planted as part of it. You know, any area outside the footprint of what we've shown is developed will be planted.
So Tom, I'm just saying, so if you were out there and surveyed this last summer, and this is a 2019 ortho photo, this looks a lot different than it does today. And I'm just, you know, this area in here, you have a large area shown as sand. This is a large area. I would just like to know how you qualified something as unvegetated versus vegetated, because it's a mix in there, and a lot of it is, like you said, gravel alongside the road, which I would guess you're not going to actually replace with any vegetation because it's still going to end up being disturbed along all of these roadside edges. So
well, so the that corner right now, I think, is an area where, because there's no house there, I think a lot of winter snow gets piled up there every year.
Well, there were two cars parked out there this morning, right there.
Yeah, and if you look at the aerial that's on the cover, which I think is 2017, you look at older aerials, there's cars that have been parking on this lot for a long time. So they were probably parked right about where those are.
Yeah.
I think it's been a neighborhood vacant lot that has just been used by people for this kind of parking. So we could actually talk about putting something like a split rail fence, you know, a foot or two in off the pavement, or off the property line. In the case of Northern Boulevard, if you look, I think the property line is off the pavement a little bit, and there's an awful lot of sand that's off-site between the site and the road, and we're not counting that because that's, you know, it's not owned. But if we the site plan for a second. The other thing is, I think that if I remember right, so if you look at the property line up at the top, one thing we're not proposing to do, but we're well within our rights to do, is, you know, we have 65th Street pavement comes 8 and 9 feet into the property up top there. So there's a big area of the property that is actually the city has paved. And you can see,
but there's also a big area of the property that's on Northern Boulevard.
right, which we didn't, but we didn't count that. That's Northern Boulevard. So that Northern Boulevard, the right of way includes vegetated areas and sand areas that approach the property line. But if you look at 65th Street, the actual pavement comes significantly into the property. And if we were to tear that out and plant it, it would be a much easier time, you know, making the case for vegetation with you guys. But, you know, we're trying to avoid having to do that.
But Tom, that's like, let's not play that game.
Well, it's an impacted part of the site. But regardless, we do have the sand areas, and I think we could talk about putting in split rail fence along the perimeter so that those areas would no longer be impacted by parking cars. And it would protect the planting areas that go in, and it would also stop the winter plow impacts.
Yeah, I'm personally, I'm going to need a site visit with you, and
okay,
I'm going to need stuff, you know, shown where you're planning on planting and what the condition of the area is now. So
right, okay. Do we want to talk about a date tonight then?
That would probably be okay.
Yeah. Probably sooner rather than later, so that if we have to update anything on the plan, we have time to do so.
I can do either Thursday or Friday of this week or Thursday or Friday of next week.
Okay.
Yeah,
why
I
don't we-
can do probably 1 or later on Thursday and whenever on Friday.
Friday is better for me.
It's not good for me.
Is there a time on Friday?
I've been to the site, so I'm happy to miss that site visit if the rest of you can make it on Friday.
I can do any time on Friday.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I
I'm
can
good on Friday as well.
I can do any time after 11.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So would 11 work, or do you want to say 11:30?
Actually, I actually can't do it until 12 or later. I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay. Then why don't we say 1 o'clock
Perfect.
on
Okay.
Friday? Chris, does that work for you?
I'm actually supposed to be out of town, but let me see what I could do, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, you don't necessarily have to be there.
Yeah, I really would like to be there, so I will try to change that. I'll see what I can do.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess, Tom, my biggest concern is that big bunch of vegetation right in the middle.
Right.
Whether, how much of that can be saved and whether it can be transplanted or not.
Yeah, and I can look at that. I mean, depending on the species and the condition of it, what we've done successfully, and it takes a lot of care and watering, is you prune it back a little bit so that the excavator can actually get in there without doing too much damage to the top side of the plant and grab the roots. And then you try to transplant it, do it quickly, and then keep it watered for a while. And usually it'll be stressed for a year or so, but it'll come back. But again, it depends on the species. I'd have to look again at that to tell for sure.
Tom, I would just, probably won't be at the site visit on Friday. I would
Yeah.
just like to see a landscape plan.
Yeah.
Number one, that shows where all the plantings are going to be. And in particular, if there's going to be a fence to protect these edges of the roadway, which I think is necessary, if you're proposing to take credit for every square inch of unvegetated area, then you're going to need to plant every square inch of unvegetated area and up to the roadway. I'd like to see a realistic plan for where you plan to establish vegetation. If that requires a fence, where the fence would be. And then let's look at these calculations for real. Because I'm not sure, I just think that once you look at where you can actually establish, healthy native vegetation, that it might change. And you can't, unless you work with the city, you can't establish native vegetation on 65th Street. And I don't think that it's the commission's job to.
Well, and we haven't
recommend
proposed, right, we have not proposed that. We're
No,
just,
I know you haven't, but so it's hard to sort of give you credit for part of 65th Street when that's not something that can be replaced on site at all anywhere. So let's just
No,
be
I hear
realistic
you.
about it.
Right. No, we can mark up showing a split rail fence along the perimeter. We can update the calculations to show that. And what I'll do is wait until after the site visit. So any other, obvious changes we need to do on the plan, we can take care of at the same time.
Okay, great.
Okay. So 1 p.m. on Friday.
Yep.
There are a couple of
Go ahead.
There are a couple of members of the public who have their hands raised, just
Oh,
when you're
okay.
ready, Joe.
Are we done for now? I will take it we're done for now. Okay, how about Lynn Smith? You want to unmute yourself, Lynn?
Yep, hi, I just did. There's a few concerns that myself as well as many of the neighbors around here have, and my husband's here with me, Joe Smith, also a resident of 65th Street. And we just want to kind of voice them and have them concerned with the whole building of another structure on this small plot of land. This plot of land has already been totally disrupted. Someone just knocked on the door. So this section of land has already been disrupted. Can you close the door? Sorry, has already, close the door, please. Sorry, has already been disrupted by much building, and it has actually displaced not only the water, the wildlife in the area, which is, a nest of cardinals. That bush you guys are talking about does contain a nest of cardinals. And, it's just, if you look at the street, it's enough. It's enough. And I think that everything has, I think everyone has the same concern on the neighborhood. When do you stop? How much is too much? When is there any open area available? And I appreciate the fact that he wants to build more and make more money. And I think we're all, entrepreneurs. We all want that. But at some point, you got to stop. This is zoned a flood zone for a reason. And if he keeps building, what about the water table? What about all of us that have basements? What about all of us that have a 2-foot crawl space that currently fills with water? How are we all affected? So I think that's pretty much the neighborhood consensus of we need to stop. No more. We've lived through this for 6-7 months. He has his 6 units. It's enough.
Can I also say that the existing structure that was put across the street is just so substantially larger than what was there and taking up so much more area that square footage in a hard rain, all that water's got to go somewhere. Now, the property that was there used to go down several feet from the street. Now that's all been filled up, and there's more fill to come. That may even be higher than the street level. All that rain is going to run directly into my yard. I have a very dry basement right now, and I'm concerned I'm going to get flooding. I don't think we should do any more building on these properties until we've had a few cycles of severe storms so we understand the impact of the building that's just been done. I'm also concerned about the calculation of the area that was used to define the size of this home. I don't think that any OA area should be used in the calculation of square footage allowed on that property. OA does not allow any building whatsoever, so I don't think the intent of that is to allow it to be used for a structure immediately adjacent to it. I'm also concerned about the height of these properties. This one right here in particular, the highest point is going to be 41 feet in the air. All the structures around are not on pilings. They're all at ground level. And now we're being, kind of just put in the middle of these structures that raise that high up off the ground. It's just a terrible look. And as it's described in the application here, highly dense area. I don't think we need to add more density into this area. Let's see. So, those are my concerns right now on this property. And also, I'm glad that you picked up on what was proposed as 129 feet of additional green area or whatever they're saying. There's no way that this proposal, putting a lot and driveway and everything else there, is going to add to the vegetation space. There's absolutely no way. And the parking that you see there is parking for the people that come to work on the houses. That's where they park. So, and if you're talking about putting up fencing around there up to the street line, I don't think that's gonna make the neighbors any more happy, especially on 65th Street. So those are our positions on this place. I don't know if this is the right forum to display or, to talk about those things, but we felt that we should let you know what the neighbors are thinking. I know some of the neighbors are trying to get on, can't get their phones or their speakers to work on their computer.
But several are on.
Yeah, several are on. So thank you for allowing us to speak.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. How about Kevin and Nicole? All right.
You can unmute yourselves, yeah.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, so right now it's just Kevin. So hi, also live on 65th Street, right next to Joe and Lynn. I agree with everything they just said. One thing that you guys were talking about earlier was the kind of the unvegetated, vegetated spaces that are there. Like Joe just mentioned, there is a large chunk of land that is now dirt that used to be grass that was parked on by all the builders for the projects that have just happened. There are a couple spaces that have been there for a while that people parked on, but it's a very small space compared to what's there now. So saying that we're going to replant a bunch of space and cover all this land that was unvegetated, it's kind of you're kind of working against you right there, because they caused some of that, and that's kind of something that jumped out to me. I also agree with the where does the water go. That's a large chunk of land that is just there's nothing there, so the water goes straight down. What happens to our houses? What happens to Northern Boulevard? There's a ton of flooding that can happen there anyway. So just creating the space where there's no water to be able to go down, again, just creates more of an issue for all of us, the road, everyone on the other side of the road, everyone driving.
65th Street is a very light, weak street in consideration of.
My wife Nicole's here too.
Sorry.
Okay.
So it's just, I think when all of these projects started on 65th and 63rd Street, we all knew that what was going there was probably a little better than what was there before. I think we can all agree to that. Like Joe mentioned, the size of the one on 65th, the 5-unit, is a little bigger than we thought it was going to be. So just kind of continuing that, let's just keep piling on buildings in this little small space. Like Joe mentioned, again, we're getting kind of crunched in here, and I'm not sure we all would have agreed to what was happening if it had been said at the beginning that, hey, we're going to build these 6 units, and then we're going to throw maybe another one here, and then we're going to try for another one here.
And how is it possible that we can replace all of the vegetation that was damaged or lost during this construction, given the fact that we just had a deck put in, and we went out there and hand planted individual pods of beach grass, what, 300?
Yeah, a lot.
Ourselves as residents, I can't imagine how much they would have to replace to make up for the construction and the damage and the loss to the nature.
And to my point, if this is I think the number was 1,600 square feet. I mean, where are you going to replace 1,600 square feet of vegetation on a place that's already almost 100% vegetation minus the places where you construction parked for the last 6, 8, 9 months? That is really our concern there. I think Joe covered a lot of them, but just the general, let's not keep building up the space and squeeze every square inch of profit out of we can. Like Lynn said, I get that we all like to make money, but when is it too much? When to say when in this space, and just crowding every inch of this land that's there.
And it's just plain sad.
It is sad. So I guess that's really it from our end. It's a lot. We get it, but it's a lot, and I'm not sure that people without millions and millions of dollars would ever be able to do this. So we're just trying to voice our opinion, and it doesn't seem right, it doesn't feel right, and it's taking a lot of land off the island where I know you guys like to protect. That's, I guess, just kind of our thoughts.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Barbara Smith, did you want to talk?
No.
Come on, Barbara.
Barbara, if you would like to unmute yourself, I believe you can do that at this point.
Come on, Barb.
You might have stepped away.
Yeah, her hand keeps raising and unraising. Well, we are going to be continuing this also. So let's see. Barbara, can you unmute yourself?
If you're on a computer, it's generally in the left-hand corner, the mute.
Well, Barbara, I'll give you a little bit longer. Lynn Smith, did you want to say something else? You can unmute yourself as well.
Yeah, hi. Lynn, this is Joe, Lynn's husband. Lynn just ran down to Barbara's house. I think she may be having some technical issues, so she just ran down to her house to see if she can help her unmute herself.
Okay, well, I'll give her another minute.
Thank you.
But we're going to need to move on. In the meantime, do we have any other comments or anything?
Yep, you're here. Hello?
Oh, there she is. Okay.
Yes,
go ahead,
hi.
Barbara.
Lynn came over to unmute me. I'm Barbara Smith. I am at 194 Northern Boulevard, the house right next to the area we're talking about. I have a lot to say, so I hope we have a little bit of time. A year ago, Chris Horan stopped at my house and told me the good news. The good news is that they were building all of these 6 houses. 6 houses. But the good news was that the property across from me was not to be touched. That in fact, land was sand and water problems and flood problems and everything you could think of would not be touched. And what I needed to do was focus on the fact that that wasn't going to be touched and to disregard everything else that was happening. It really shouldn't be a concern to me. And following his lead, I did that. Did I know that he was going to backdoor this house 6 months later? Absolutely not. Did I think that this is a very unminded step? Absolutely. I'm vehemently opposed to a 7th house in that little area. Every day I'm subject to looking at one house, the beach house. It encompasses the space that I used to look at the sky. I no longer can see the sky. I am thankful that I am catty-cornered over to that house and not the monstrosity 6-unit, 5-unit building, because that I find to be very offensive. And I don't understand why they would build something that large and in the style of the Gambrel. It's not indicative of anything in this area. It sticks out like a sore thumb. I think it's offensive. I think it's offensive to the neighborhood and the community, people who have lived here for years and years. I think a lot of things are changing in this country, and this is something we need to pay attention to. As regards to parking, there was never any parking to the degree that was trampled on by these construction workers. They would arrive in their own cars, and it would look like a tow truck, a tow yard, with these various cars leaking oil of all types. My property's been run over, tire tracks. There's been total disregard for this street and for that property that they so much want to develop at this point. I'm beside myself with everything that we've lived with. And I was so excited at the thought that these people would finally be gone. And any parking that's happening on Northern Boulevard is a result of the marketing of the properties. Now we're going to have to live with that. How many properties are sold at this point, please?
Well, I don't think that's actually relevant.
Okay, well, the marketing of the properties is another impact on the people who live in this neighborhood. There are droves of people that come for the open houses, but that's not the important issue. The important issue for me are the points that I made regarding being told that nothing would be built on that area. And so as a result, when the hearings came and went for the 6 houses, I turned a deaf ear. I mean, it wasn't concerning me because I had that area that wasn't going to be touched. And now that they're built and there's no way to ask that they no longer be there, now we're on to the 7th house. Now, these houses are selling for a tremendous amount of money. I've looked at the profit. They have a construction loan for I'm not sure now. I don't have the figures. I didn't put them in front of me. But we're looking at incredible profit margin here. And as a result, what is this neighborhood getting as a result of this? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I am vehemently opposed. I also am very concerned that this neighborhood received 1 day's notice. We haven't had time to do any organizing of the community. There's grassroots organizing that can be done here very quickly. I'll start tomorrow. I can also tell you that we need to speak with an attorney. Something like this cannot be decided today or anytime soon. It's absolutely outrageous that there will be 6 properties that are selling in excess of $500,000 each. $899,000 is the beach house. And now they've decided that that isn't enough money to make $2.7 million in profit isn't enough. They've got to add another house. And these houses are ginormous. They go up to the middle of the sky. Not only are they taking the land, but they're taking the sky as well. This is outrageous. And the style of these houses is not even conducive to this neighborhood. I think it's a slap in the face to the people who live here, the long-term residents. And I haven't had a moment's time to organize and speak with them and get a group together just so they can speak their concerns. 1 day's notice on this. If this isn't a backdoor type of, slip this in, and after being told by Chris Rand standing on my deck, my property looks directly out into this area. When he came and said this thing about the houses, I was devastated. And then he said, I said, oh, I'm not, I'm going to have to find out. And then he said, well, no, but don't worry, because this land came back the next day and said, I've got great news. Nothing is going to be built in this area in front of your house. It's all the way over to 63rd. It's going to remain the same. So don't concern yourself. Just know and focus on that. Don't worry about the other houses. If I knew what I know now, there would have been much more done regarding the building of those 6 homes. 6 homes. Now, when I said to him, how are you able to do that, Chris? He said, well, there was a 5-unit, 5-family house on this particular that we're taking down. And as a result, we're going to be able to put up 5 townhouses. Well, I can assure you that the size of those apartments is nowhere. All of them combined wouldn't equal the size of one of those townhouses. So I'm not sure how 5 for 5 and square footage for square footage works on that. And then he said, and the single family house over there, well, we're taking that down. So we're going to be allowed to put up a single family house. I said, oh, great. And there's no houses that they're taking down over here in the land that they're proposing to now build on. And there's grandfathered rights. I really don't know what that means. So it's my understanding that if you're a developer and you buy a property from somebody and they have grandfather's rights, those automatically revert over to you. Well, then where do the grandfather rights stop? The developers come in and find something they can grandfather in. Doesn't make sense to me. So we're going to need an attorney to go over all of this. So I implore you to not do anything regarding this. Allow me to organize the community here. Let's get a grassroots organization going here and get some attorneys, and let's get this straightened out, because the 6 houses that we've lived through, $2.7 million in profit that they're looking at is just enough for me. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Barbara. Well, we won't be deciding tonight. Has this property gone up in front of the planning board yet?
Doesn't, Mr. Chair, Lisa Mead, Tellerman Costa, it doesn't require any other approvals other than the Conservation Commission.
Okay. Okay. So, is there anybody else from the public?
And Mr. Chairman, I do want to just note 2 things. One is when I said approximately 1,600 square feet of living space, that's on 2 floors. So the area of the house is 800.
Right.
And the other thing I wanted to emphasize is I understand there's been some construction parking impact. And as I said, we did not count those areas in our unvegetated areas. The unvegetated survey and work was all done before construction started. And the photos that are in your package are all pre-construction. So we're not trying to take any credit for anything, and we are committed to repairing any damage from any construction folks who have parked there.
Okay.
Just one quick thing to note, Tom, in looking at these vegetated areas, now that we don't have a current condition that's accurate because of the damage done by the parking of the construction vehicles over the course of this year, this winter, we really only have that aerial photo from 2019 to go on. So it's going to be really important for you to explain again, like what your criteria was for establishing something as unvegetated versus vegetated.
Right.
There's only so much far we can zoom in on those aerial photos to see, but my guess is, and you've got some photographs, but the site is different today than it was then. So it's going to be tricky.
Right. Yeah, I mean, one thing, so one of the things when I look at a site for vegetation coverage, what I don't count as an area that would meet the planting criteria. So as you know, some consultants propose 2 feet on center. I usually do 1 foot on center. If it's sparse grass, it's vegetated. So I was looking at areas that were gravel and surface and areas devoid of vegetation. I mean, might there be 1 blade of wispy grass in there? Yeah, but not anything that I could ever point to and say this was just planted. In other words, that sort of 1 to 2 foot on center. You know, if there was a blade of grass here or there, that's.
So it would have had to have been bare in an area greater than 1 to 2 feet on center.
Yeah, yeah.
In order
because,
for you to count it.
Right, because if I took you to an area that had just been planted, it would look fairly bare, and you'd see a lot of sand. Dense enough that I can take credit for it, mitigation. So it's not right for me to call that sand.
Right,
I mean,
that's my point. That's sort of the point I guess I was trying to make.
And I took all those photographs to try to document it. And as I noted, all those photographs are pre-construction. And, you know, when I went out to verify, I mean, I can still see the sort of footprint of the areas that I saw, but some of them are a little bit bigger because, again, the parking, and as you can see from the aerials that are in the package, the parking predated construction. You know, I can find other aerials as well showing parking on that lot. I'm not sure who it was who was doing it, but it's been parked on for some time. So again, we can you know, address some of these other concerns that were raised at the next hearing, but I just did want to clarify those items, and then you know, we can move on to the site visit and try to you know, go over the areas that I saw and also look at that shrub area.
Yeah, we're gonna need to verify whatever you are considering
Right.
an area of planting.
Right. No, that's certainly fair. I mean, it's an undeveloped lot, but you know, it is a separate lot under separate, you know, it's under separate ownership, and it's grandfathered. It's had sewer betterment that's been paid for years. You know, it is a buildable lot. So.
Yeah. So do you want to take any additional public comment? I see a hand raised again.
I can take one more if Lynn Smith wants to speak.
Yeah. Hi, this is Joe again. I'm kind of shocked that this does not have to go before the planning board, especially given the amount of area of this property that is in unbuildable zone. So I don't know if that's your jurisdiction or not to determine whether the square footage of the house here has been properly calculated.
No, that's not really, that part's not really, you know, if it's been in front of the planning commission, planning board, then it's been before them already.
Well, I guess the other issue I have then is we were told by the water company or the water department here that the vent for the sewer system has to be within 20 feet of the house. And there's no way that where that is all the way over on 65th Street is within 20 feet of that structure. So I don't know how these things have gotten approved before the planning board. I heard a lot of deceptive things in this meeting tonight, not just on this property, but even the one on 37 Terrace where they couldn't figure out whether there was grass where the proposed tower is. It's clearly grass. There's no question about it. It's grass. It's not any mixed anything. It's grass. And so I'm concerned about what's being told to the boards here. And now I have to go and verify that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to do a continuance.
Yep, so we would ask for a continuance to July 7th is your next meeting.
Yes.
And then we're doing the site visit Friday at 1. Is that what we said?
Yes.
Okay.
Motion to continue to July 7th.
Thank you.
Second,
Paul Healy,
yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Ken Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
Jane Sender,
Yeah.
Yes.
Ron DeCola,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Okay. So get a motion to close the public hearings.
So
So
moved.
moved. Second,
Paul Healy,
yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Ken Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
Jane Sender,
Yes.
Ron DeCola,
Yes.
and I vote yes. All right, first, our first order
What
is,
does that mean? They basically didn't do anything. They just voted to.
oh, yeah,
Muted. Okay. Orders of
so
conditions.
first one is 30 Vining Parker Street Notice of Intent.
Correct. Special conditions for that project are primarily related to the wetland replication area. That construction of the wetland replication area must be overseen by a certified wetland scientist. They recommended, or they suggested that would be Mary Rimmer, but we will just say a certified wetland scientist with 2 years of annual monitoring to ensure that there's 75% coverage of wetland species. If not, after 2 years, then a report shall be provided that specifies necessary alterations to the wetland replication area, including any additional plantings required.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody
Motion.
have anything they wanted to add to that, or is that okay?
That sounds good.
Did we want to say anything about what they do when they find that pipe and or if they find the pipe? Or do they have to come back to us with it if there's any change in the plans, or just assume they're going to do the right thing?
We
Well,
could say something.
They would have to come back to us.
Yeah, any changes that they might make to the plans at all would have to come back to us, regardless of what the reason would be for those changes. Well, we could specifically just call that out, that any changes to the stormwater management design related to identification of the outfall pipe from Kelly's hardware should be presented to the commission for review and approval.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Mhm. That it?
Motion to issue the order of conditions with those special conditions.
Second.
Okay, Paul Healy,
Yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Ken Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
Jane Sender.
Are we voting on this one?
Weren't they, wasn't that the first night?
Parker Street, yeah, I believe you can vote on Parker Street.
Yeah, it was just the other
Right.
two you can vote on.
Okay, yes.
And Ron DeCola,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Okay. You send that around to get a sign, Julie?
I like the system.
This is a little faster.
Yeah.
All right, next item is Michael and Karen Costello, 249, 251 Water Street.
Yeah, I actually don't have any special conditions from you all from the discussion related to that project. It seemed like they had made the changes and that you all were happy with the revised plans. They had a landscape plan that had a lot of detail. Didn't need the variance. So standard boilerplate special conditions, but on top of that, I don't have anything.
Right.
I'm just curious how that drain pipe ended up under the house. It must have been there before they built it. So why didn't the
Must
city have an
have.
easement?
It's an old drain pipe.
An old drain pipe. A lot of them are really old.
Yeah.
Surprised it still works.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Get a motion?
Motion to issue an order of conditions?
Second.
Paul Healy,
Yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Ken Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
and I say yes. Okay. The last order of conditions is Roy Cottignani, Sports Medicine North Orthopedic Surgery, Inc., 20 Henry Graff Road.
Yep. Okay, so for that one, we do have a special condition that was really related to implementation of the invasives control plan. And that was just that any removal of invasive species on site within wetland areas or buffer zones shall be accomplished in accordance with the invasives management and control plan submitted. And I'll reference the date. And shall be overseen by a certified wetland scientist with reports annually for 2 years.
Right.
Was that the one we need to approve a planting plan or something?
Yeah, that's right.
No.
No, that was actually Reservation Terrace.
Right.
That we approved the landscape plan prior to issuance of the building permit. Graff Road has it. They put together the landscape management plan. It was really they didn't leave any details left out. It was just that we wanted to make sure that if anyone's removing invasive species out there, that it is done only in accordance with that approved plan that Tom submitted.
My brain now remembers that.
Yeah.
Okay. You all set with that?
Motion to issue a certificate of order of
Not yet,
conditions.
Paul.
Come on, let's move this one on. Motion to issue the order of conditions?
Second.
All right, Paul Healy,
Yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Okay. So the last one is Mark and Kim McTicka, 30 Reservation Terrace.
Yep, there's a reservation. So for this, there were 2 special conditions that we discussed. The first was related to the lawn grasses and any damage to non-native vegetation. Well, we always have the condition that any damage to vegetation on site needs to be replaced post-construction. And we say that with non-native vegetation. In this case, I'd like to specify that any damaged vegetation, including lawn grasses, shall be replaced not with additional lawn grass, but with native species such as American beach grass. Because I just can see that happening. I want to make sure that we don't support that. That was one. And the second one was prior to issuance of a building permit for the project, a landscape plan shall be presented to the commission for review and approval, essentially with things like the pathways, plantings, materials, removal of mulch, and all of that.
Okay, sounds good to me. Motion?
Yeah.
Come on, someone other than Paul, make a motion.
Yeah.
I
Fourth
move.
condition, order conditions.
Second.
All right, Paul Haley,
Yeah.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Dan Warshall,
Yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
Jane Sender,
Yes.
Ron DeCola,
Yes.
and I say yes. Okay. Now, I don't know, Gretchen, Jane might get the nod for the motion. She cut in before Steve did.
I'll let her have it.
Thanks.
All right. Do we have anything else?
Did we want to talk about determining bare space,
Sure.
minimum size? I think I had sort of proposed that in order for a bare spot to be able to be included in the calculations, it needed to be a minimum of 4 square feet.
Which would handle 4 culms or
Yeah.
4 double culms, however they want to plant it.
Just so that we don't have something really small being considered.
Right. Yeah, I think it's a good idea to have a required definition of how big a planting area is and how we'll we'll accept it as an adequate spot.
Right. Yeah.
So we're putting that into special conditions at this point?
I think we would have to put in either a definition in the regs or an added section or something. I don't know exactly where we.
Yeah, it seems like it maybe should be something that goes in our the Plum Island guidelines part of the regulations, where we talk about landscaping maybe, that we could provide guidance on what can be considered unvegetated area on the island. I think it's a great idea to have it because I think that applicants have used different criteria in the past, and some really small, square inches to square feet, like Tom's talking about. I think we need to have something that's understood as the criteria that the commission accepts.
Mm-hmm.
So but it also has to be defensible. So if you're going to choose 4 square feet, we need to provide an explanation for that.
Okay. I think we can work on something like that.
Yep.
It's not exactly a large area.
Yep, and I can consult with coastal zone management about how to word that, or what, if they have any specific recommendations. In the past, they haven't. In fact, in the past, they've just said there can be no removal of vegetation. They don't even want us to do that sort of balance and compensation that we do. So they weren't looking at it the same way that we are. But I can still talk with them about what might be a useful criteria.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be good. See what they say. We'll figure something out off of that.
The other thing, when I went out to visit this 192 Northern Boulevard this morning, I was horrified by the size of the buildings that went up there.
Okay, well, I understand, but we really shouldn't be even getting into any of that.
I think it does, in that those buildings are now blocking the wind and blocking the ability for the wind to carry sand. And I mean, I don't know that there's anything that we can say or do, but to me, it is a concern that something that large is changing the way that sand moves around out there on the island. And that's
That
one of
is-
the things we're trying to prevent.
That
So-
is true, except it's also 2 feet in the air and it meets that criteria. So I don't think we have much jurisdiction over something like that.
Well,
Beyond the point of making sure it's elevated properly.
I don't know if that's something that's been looked at before or not. I mean, you'd think that that might be something looked at before, but I have no idea.
Yeah, well, I think when they were doing all those things, nobody really thought about those, a 5 condo unit, which is massive.
Yeah.
Right. Someone thought about it. But no one's dictating, you don't know where the wind's gonna come from.
Right.
Any house, a single, 1,000 square foot place is gonna affect the wind. And it's gonna cause shadows and whatever, making sand pile up different ways. That's the way it is in a windy spot. So that's really not I don't think we have much authority over something like that. So, anything else?
Yeah, Julia, have you heard from Matt Kazaki about Hale Street?
I have not heard from him. I think I mentioned that I had emailed him and I never got a response. I was going to talk to Jordy about an updated, some updated contact information for him maybe, and I haven't done that yet. We're all sort of just getting back into the office and things are a little strange, but if I see him tomorrow, or I'll shoot him an email. I'll see if I can get some information.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm thinking these days you can probably just drive out there because it's probably not too wet to get it done. I don't even know if he's got to wait till the winter because it's.
Well, I don't know that we want him cutting it now because the idea was for the butterflies and birds and stuff.
Oh, you're right. They would have to be after August.
Supposed to be the fall. Yeah.
Do it in the fall, but make sure he doesn't.
And he's gonna maybe need heavier equipment.
Right.
Yeah.
He's got his brush hogs. I'm sure he'll be able to clear that stuff off of there. All right. Anything else? Final motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Paul Healy,
Yes.
Steve Moore,
Yes.
Dan Warshall,
yes.
David Vine,
Yes.
Jane Sender,
Yes.
Ron DeCola,
Yes.
and I say yes.
Okay.
See whoever can make it to the site visit.
All right.
On
Otherwise-
Friday. If
Right.
you can,
I definitely will
we go.
not be. I'm out of town. I won't be around.
okay, you will not be there. Just shoot me an email. If you, well, I know Dan, you won't be there. Shoot me an email if you won't be there, just in case everyone bows out. I just want to be able to let Tom know. I don't want it to be a surprise if, we need to
Right.
reschedule. So,
Right.
okay.
I almost forgot.
I'll drive out.
Even though the meeting's done, I'm not going to be here on the 7th, I don't think.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Well, we might go on vacation.
Yeah, I might.
Good. That's good. Okay, fine. And if anyone else is going to miss, let me know. We need to make sure we have a quorum. So the sooner we know what everyone's attendance will be, the better.
Okay.
I plan to be there.
Awesome.
Very good.
Okay.
All right. See you
Thanks.
soon.
Have a
Thanks.
good night.
Night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.
Night.
And recording.